Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Carissa.
And I'm Christian, and this is A Lot in Common.
So today we have on a very well-researched guest. We would say he's the authority of everything 6G, the 2030 agenda, and the satanic AI cults. So today we're welcoming in 6gAgenda. I watched your episode, your 100th episode, where you talked about Michael Aquino, and I'm like, oh, okay, we could definitely start with that. We did a little research into Michael Aquino. We didn't read Mind Wars, but you have, right?
Definitely. Yes.
It's not a full book. Is it just an article that they wrote?
So it started off with Psyop to Mind War, and that was Paul Vallely, who happens to be the main advisor at TPUSA. I know you guys are big into Charlie Kirk and stuff, and me and William Ramsey discovered while we were looking at something with Charlie Kirk that Paul Vallely's name was on that website, and me and him were like, he brought it up first, and he said, "Oh, that's the guy who had Michael Aquino write the book Mind War," and I didn't know that at the time, or I'd forgotten. And so Psyop to Mind War was a paper initially, which after Vietnam, the way Michael Aquino explains it is that they lost the war in Vietnam, according to the military. And, you know, I think he was a colonel. He wasn't a general. He was a colonel, I believe.
Colonel.
In the Marines and in the Navy, I believe, maybe. Because I think we'll get into the Zodiac stuff later, but point being, he knew naval intelligence stuff and everything else. Pretty plugged in with the military. I think the reason why the Pentagon is a Pentagon is because of Michael Aquino's influence on the military via his satanic cult. But we'll get into that. He wrote the Psyop to Mind War because they decided we need to use psychological operations as the first line of defense rather than kinetic warfare. And so Michael Aquino, with his wife, he talked about using the green pixie dust of his wife, Lilith, to bring in the magic needed to create the perfect document for psychological operations, aka controlling and manipulating the masses via propaganda, images, manipulations of beliefs. And so that went from a paper to, the whole thing's kind of about we need to get our enemies to want to do what we want to without even knowing that we're, and then we can go deeper on that with or whatever. And he kind of, examines all the different ways. This turned into 3 books. I have all 3 books, Mind War, Find Far, and Mind Star. These are the 3 books Michael Aquino ended up producing out of this. So they're kind of hard to find online. Mind War, you can find online and read the PDF. It's interesting because he cut out certain things in the book there that he didn't have out in the paper, which is where he calls out conspiracy theorists and their ideas of like ultra and pretty much being rudimentary, and not having a full understanding of what it is. And he took that out of the book, which I thought was kind of interesting. But anyway, point being, he had Mind Star, which was more about his satanic church, the Temple of Set, and more detailing, I guess you could say, like his religion, let's call it, Setianism. And then, and how it kind of interacts with people's psyche. And then also, finally, you could call it a quantum examination of mind manipulation, which is Find Far. And the idea is like find from far away, So now we're getting into the Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies, biodigital convergence, the things I cover on my show a lot, which is controlling people in a panopticon where you can literally control like their mind, body, and spirit via technology, maybe. Because even in his book, he talks about us being an Homo electromagneticus is a term he uses for humans, which is this idea of like we're human, but we have an electromagnetic part to us. And he's the first guy to really go deep on the idea of frequency manipulation and using that for mind control rather than chemicals, which is what people are used to hearing from and about from the CIA ultra studies.
Right.
So in a nutshell, that's what these 3 books really were. They were actually huge. Like they're a big deal. I did a major series on it with Michael Aquino, and by the end we decided that we think that Michael Aquino might even be involved with the Zodiac killings and his satanic church. And so there's a lot to it, this whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, Michael Aquino is a very interesting character.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but we did do this whole, like, kind of a mini deep dive into, really truly believe that Michael Aquino was the father of J.D. Vance and Erika Kirk.
Absolutely.
I think that he is their father. I think that they were twins, and I think it was like a ritualistic thing that they did to get them in power and make them president and vice president of the free world in the future. I think that that's kind of valid, honestly.
Or at the very least, being very influential in the mystery cult taking power in the new world, right? Which is what I believe they are all a part of, which is this like mystery cult, mystery Babylon cult, which we could get into later because that's kind of the basis behind this whole system. It's not all materialistic. I think there's a spiritual aspect to it. Mm-hmm. But did you guys see the picture where Lilith is like doing a ritual and they're all in robes and you got this blonde lady and this dude who has the same face hair as Erika Kirk's father? And you're like, come on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that saved, that photo. Let me grab that.
Insane.
That's insane. And you don't know all of J.D. Vance's background. We know that his mother was like a pill addict and his dad wasn't really around. So that kind of, it's a weird
You know what else?
background.
They were both born in Ohio.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Erika Kirk's birthday is changing. It changes on different documents.
Yes. So she's like supposedly like 37 years old, but her mother has put her birth date and birth year wrong a few times on different like important documents.
Yeah. So her and JD could have the same birthday.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, twins. That's a crazy take. I didn't think about the twin aspect.
They look like it.
You're
man.
right. They've got Michael Aquino's face, like cheekbone structure.
Yep.
Here, okay. Let me pull up their pictures, okay? And then I have that picture of their mom with Lilith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the basis of all this stuff is, magic rituals that go back to ancient Babylon, where they worshipped, the universal goddess of the universe, which is like Isis, Ashtar, Ishtar. We've all heard the names, right? Some people correlate it with Lilith and things like that later. I think there's an aspect to that could be argued to be true because that's just mysticism and their version of it. Yeah, crazy stuff because I think it's all one cult, that's perpetuated itself throughout history.
Yep.
Yes, sir. All right,
you guys got some banger stuff. You got some banger stuff with Charlie regarding this Charlie Kirk topic.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm going to mute this, though, because it plays music, and I don't want any strikes on YouTube. But, of course, in the beginning, you had Michael Aquino himself. That is the Mind War book here. And then it tells you what it's about. And then, of course, we've got Major General Paul Vallely here. And it is funny that you brought up that he works for TPOSA because he totally has ties with that. And then he wrote this book with Michael Aquino. And then at the end here, of course, we've got JD.
The eyes.
Yeah. Those are very specific eyes. Very specific face structure, nose.
Yes.
They have the eyebrows. Look at that.
And that's their daddy right there.
Come on.
His eyes are oddly dark. Which is crazy because I always thought Michael Aquino had lighter eyes. I don't know. Looking at him now,
they get darker when you get older, I feel like. Because some pictures of him when he's younger, they look lighter.
And I mean, you don't have to have every single aspect of your parent, right? They definitely have the eyebrows. They got the same nose. They got the lips and like the big face. But not the same eye color, but they have the same eye color.
The biggest upsetting thing about my two little boys is like all the men in my family have like green eyes. And they don't. They got like, hazel brown. I was like, damn. I was hoping that would pass on. It sucks. So I get it. Michael Aquino, he had it the opposite way, clearly. So one other thing about the well, I don't want to go there with the Charlie Kirk. Do you guys see the book that came out the day before Charlie Kirk died?
What was it?
So it was called The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, and it came out 9/9/2024.
On Amazon, right?
That's right. And it's 999s if you put the 224 together, which is the Kabbalistic number shit. So 999s is when this came out. Kind of weird. And you look at the book, and I looked into it because a lot of people, it went viral on the internet, but nobody was kind of doing the examination of what this was. So I looked into it, and the book itself, I don't know if it's real, but the author isn't real. Can't find another book by her. Can't find anything by her. And her name's Anastasia J. Casey. And it's interesting because, I've read a lot of stuff regarding like the JFK killing and the killing of a king ritual by James Shelby Downard, who's like one of the OG conspiracy theorists. And he detailed this idea of like how names matter. Names mean stuff. JFK, Kennedy actually means wounded head in Gaelic, and he was Irish. So it's very interesting when you start to kind of backtrack names and the meanings. So considering that and looking at examining the names in the Charlie Kirk murder. I think it's kind of worth it to kind of get into it real quick with you guys.
Yeah.
Because this was definitely a ritualistic murder in TPUSA, Turning Point USA. This is the turning point where we're going into the New World Order because of this murder martyrdom that happened through Charlie Kirk. It's very interesting, the symbology here. Point being, so let's start with her name, Anastasia J. Casey. Anastasia means it's a Catholic martyr. She's a Christian martyr, Anastasia. Very much like Charlie Kirk. And J is actually one of the letters that are on one of the, what would you call it? The pillars of Freemasonry. You have J and B, Joachim and Boaz. Joachim means to establish. He establishes. So this Christian martyr establishes. And then you look at Casey. It's a brave, watchful order. We're talking about this technocratic police state, New World Order. Brave, watchful order. And it's interesting just to add to that. Kash Patel said, rest easy. We have the watch now. And I'm talking about watchful order, right? And I'll see you in Valhalla. So now you have this like mystery school connection with paganism. So it's all there. You know, this guy, you know, talks about Valhalla, but he swore in on a Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu text.
Right.
But they're all one mystery school religion if you actually look into it. So point being, this is like what's going on with that. And then you have Hunter Kozak, who's the last guy to ask him a question. And his name means the hunter of the free man. And Charlie Kirk, wouldn't you know, it means free man's church.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I just
my
got
gosh.
chills.
I know. I'm getting like chills. This is
crazy.
quite crazy.
This is the level that they operate at, right?
Yes.
So when you understand that, like, that's why I'm super deep on the mystery Babylon aspect of this, the mystery school aspect, because I don't think it's as simple as geopolitical secret societies that want to run the world. It's deeper than that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's wild.
That is really, really crazy. I would
Yeah.
like to look more into that book that it was the day before he was killed.
Yeah.
That it was
And-
being sold on Amazon.
Yeah,
Was
but I
that
don't
what
know
it
if they were
was?
Remember that.
selling. If they were selling it, I just wonder, like, what was detailed in the book? Like, I'm so curious, you know? Is it still
Right,
there?
Right.
I wonder if anybody bought it. If anybody bought it out there, let us know.
Let us know, please, because
Yeah.
I've been looking. I've brought this up many times, and nobody's reached out to me. I feel like that would be a pertinent thing that somebody would bring up.
Oh, for sure.
Just a quick Google search of it. The book, The Shooting of Charlie Kirk by Anastasia J. Casey, was briefly listed on Amazon, but is no longer available.
'Cause it wasn't real.
The reported early publication date was due to a technical error, they say.
Well, look at the bottom here. The listing included a cover image and description, which AI detector suggested was 92.8% likely written by artificial intelligence. It was fake,
Interesting.
dude. It was put out here as a psyop.
Wow.
Yeah, and they put it out the day before. And I mean, there's a few things like that with the day, like right before Charlie was assassinated, like people were posting online, and then there was those witches that supposedly did that Etsy spell
Jezebel.
on him. Yes.
Yeah.
And so
And
there's
that's Jezebel's like a demoness high priestess in the Bible. Like, so again, we've got this crossover where you have this like, you know, where she's putting a hex on him and then he dies. They're like burning a picture of him. And
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. And they took it down, and I got screenshots of it before they took it down because I was like deep into it right away.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got screenshots of that. And also what we just brought up there, that book, you know, it's interesting because they're almost trying to allude to, pardon me, time travel in a weird way, right? Like, how could they have known before or the day before he died and put this book out? You go to the shooting of Trump at the Correspondents' Dinner, and you had this whole like picture of him at Butler. Remember the painting? You know, with the whole X post. And this X post apparently posted this guy's name who went to try to kill him before it happened.
Yeah.
Here's my theory with that. Elon Musk has full control over X. He can definitely backdate a post and make it look like something came out a year ago that didn't, right? So
right.
I kind of lean towards that, where they're trying to actually manufacture this kind of like mass psychosis is really what it is. If you think about it, people just don't even know what their reality is, man.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good perspective on that because he totally could just go on there and do whatever he wants with
Yes.
backdating
Yeah.
posts, you know?
Yeah,
and
and
they
I
want
mean,
you to believe in
honestly,
time travel. You know, that's a big deal
Yeah.
with Trump, especially, right? With the books. And
Yeah.
With the books.
Yeah.
They talk about Baron a lot in there
and
too.
I mean, even Elon Musk, that one book with Elon Musk where
yeah.
he was like the king, he was the
Elon.
president of Mars or something.
Yeah.
And this was written in like the late 1800s, I believe, or early 1900s.
well, it was
Have you
written
heard
by
about that?
Warner. It was written by Werner von Braun, the
Yes.
guy
Oh,
who
yes.
started NASA, literally a
Yes.
Nazi.
Right.
Literally a Nazi, and all these
Yes.
guys are Nazis. Like, you look at Peter Thiel, he comes from Frankfurt, Germany. His dad was a chemical engineer for the Nazis. They try to say he wasn't. They try to act like he wasn't, but he left because of the persecution of the Nazi regime. Very crazy shit. But anyway, so
it's all tied in together. And so I would like to get more because I'm not very familiar with the mystery schools of Babylon. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah, let's start talking about that.
Just to tie a bow on that. So that last aspect where we were talking about kind of manipulating people's reality to believe in time travel and all this stuff, that is a part of Mind Wars, right? This is the find far aspect where you change people's beliefs, attitudes, and minds and gear it towards this new reality that you want to manifest for the masses. And we're seeing that today, right? Like Hollow Earth is a great example. You know, that was funded. That whole thing was funded by the Rockefellers to revive a Nazi mythology of Agartha or Thule being in the inner Earth. The whole black sun from the Nazis that everybody's so familiar with, that is inside of Earth. That's what they believed. So when you understand that, you kind of get that full understanding. You're like, oh, they're just resurging Nazi mythology that they used to galvanize a whole nation into a genocidal mania, you know, because that is a reality to that. You know, whether or not he was working with the Zionists, you know, regardless, they did some crazy shit. You know, it wasn't like he was just a great guy, because people try to argue that because, you know, either he was like a good guy and, you know, because he burned smut, you know, the Nazis, the burning books. It's like, okay, relax. You know, there were some aspects to him where he was definitely funded by the Rothschilds or propped up in order to be the boogeyman to create this. And
absolutely,
I think he was, you know, he knew this. But anyway, so the mystery schools is a part of that too, because I could show you something crazy right now. You should look up a painting of Odin in the 1800s. Type after that, just to make sure you get it. This is very crazy, guys, because again, we're talking about the mystery schools, Nordic mythology. The SS for the Nazis was a rune from Nordic, like, symbols.
Here, I'll show you what it came up. You tell me which one to click on here.
There we go. First image. Pull that up. Look at that. That was before he was born, dude.
Oh, that's creepy.
So when you understand,
oh my goodness,
that's him. Like, zoom in on that. That is him, dude. I mean, how do you look at that any other? So this is depicting the Wild Hunt. Yeah. Wow. He's got ghouls behind him, riding with him. You know, that's death. You know, Deathbringer. And you know, Michael Aquino had Nazi, you know, knives. He went to Himmler's castle and did rituals there. So again, we got this tie with like Nazism, Michael Aquino, Mind Wars, psychological operations, ultra technology, all this stuff. They were summoning and doing occult rituals in order to create this technology, and then we absorbed it through Project Paperclip. And so when you know that, and then you look at what they're creating today, I believe that they're creating the Fourth Reich right now. The Nazis didn't lose, the Germans lost. And they just absorbed it across the world under the other, you know, rival Babylonian families or nations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they thought that he was an avatar for like an Odin type character, because Odin is the equivalent to Osiris, the equivalent to like, you know, one of the counterparts to Ra. So all of this is like one system of mythology and ideology. And so when you understand that, then you kind of look into the history of like the Thule Society, Theosophical Society was tied to that. And you understand Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society and how they took the ideology from like Hinduism, Kabbalism, Christian mysticism. They mixed it all together into something you would call a perennial philosophy, which is that all religions are really based off one universal truth, which is man becomes God through enlightenment. Kind of like Buddha, right? You know, you could become enlightened. And so you become God. You become your own God. That was the first lie in the garden, of course. But they believe that the snake actually was our savior. And, you know, he took us from a vindictive, evil God that wanted to keep us down from knowledge. But really, it was forbidden knowledge. I think it was more of a worship of creation rather than the worship of the creator. And so that's why you get a lot of nature worship involved with paganism and a lot of manipulation of nature with your will under certain astrological signs, etc. And so I think the worship of creation was the fall of man, you know, and it was done by this kind of wanting to know all things about the universe. That's why they call their God the architect of the universe. He creates nothing. However, he could tell you the design of the whole thing, and you can understand the sacred geometry that builds it. And you can think that you're like really learning from God because you're learning shit that like, come on, you're having like, what would you call it? Like epiphanies about like the universal truths of how the fabric of our reality is made. And so I can understand the allure behind it, but yeah, it's just a false doctrine.
It is, and they're spreading it so much now. And you know what's really annoying is how all of these controllers and everybody that's in power is they're all going for the same thing, and they're doing it so obviously in your face, and it is like the one world order, the 2030 agenda. It's all that they're doing it so quickly, and it's such a fast pace now. Like they're running out of time almost. Does it kind of feel like that?
Neck breaking.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just going crazy. They're not caring about like the things that they're showing the audience. They're just going crazy. The devil is going crazy.
He is.
What do you think about the 2030 agenda since that's coming up?
Yeah, I did an episode on all the agendas. It was called like the agendas or something, because obviously my show is called 6gAgenda, and I think that's mostly because I'm playing on the idea of like, what is the actual agenda? They talk about 2030, 2025, 2045. The overall agenda is a hive mind that we're all plugged into. And if it's true that the adversary is real and that he wants to be like the Most High, how would you do that? Well, you would replicate the creation that you're inside of digitally, right? So they're kind of replicating all of creation. They're creating things like smart dust to create a digital version of it, like a digital matrix. And they're kind of even pushing this idea that we're already in a digital matrix, so we're just going to recreate our own, which is kind of their own little Gnostic idea of our reality. Is that they think we're in a prison planet. So they're actually going to create one out of the ideology of thinking we're already in one. And then now we're really going to be screwed and can't leave, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of lines up too with like biblical prophecy, if you're into that, where it talks about how, people that take the mark, they will not, like, they're going to go to hell with the, angels that rebelled. They're not going, because clearly they're doing something that is changing their essence. And I think that gets into CERN and Shiva and the idea of like, creation out of chaos, which is kind of what we're leading it from with this idea of like critical mass of craziness that we're seeing everywhere all at once. And I think that's on purpose. It's to just build this kind of just build up the pressure so they can release it with a savior type scenario, or something that can maybe take us to the next level,
like Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, or even AI, like this whole AI. I mean, even like you have Joe Rogan going on and saying that AI can be born, or AI is born how like Jesus was born from, nothing. And so it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
What's more immaculate than a computer? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and people were just eating it up, which is insane. Right. People are like, oh yeah, he's right. And then you'll have people in the comments, they're like, yeah, but hear me out. What if AI is here to defeat the Antichrist? And I'm like, I don't think so. I think that's literally the opposite.
Yeah. I think it's a beast system that is going to be a tool that leads to the Antichrist. I don't even think it's the Antichrist itself. I used to think that, but now I'm like, no, this is the system that leads us into a mystery Babylon cult religion. And then after that, whenever the actual mark thing, I think that's going to be separate. Like right now we're kind of being led into this like divine feminine, everything's one. We're all just God experiencing itself from a different point of view. And like that gets into this idea of the hive mind kind of thing. That's where that leads to. The law of one is what they call it. And when you read more about like the old gods, the fallen angels that came down and, mated with man, created Nephilim, and they're the ones who ran Atlantis. And then Theosophical Society wants to bring Atlantis back. Who ran Atlantis? Oh, the Aryans. Right, now we're back to Nazis. So you understand that this is one system, one ideology being perpetuated throughout history. Then you understand, so this is like, and they believe that they have the original religion, which is true. Because think about it, when Adam fell from the garden, the first thing he did was, they obviously had a temptation that led them into the first religion, which was this nature worship. So technically, Christianity was not the first religion. So they're right in saying that the first religion was them, but is it good?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Is it the one to follow? That's the question. So they're not wrong by saying, well, Christianity is just plagiarized, this and that. It's like, no, you guys mirrored real truths that Christianity already held. And then when they came out with the real truth, you're trying to say, well, ours actually predates it so that it's more real. Right. No, it was counterfeit from the beginning, you see?
Yes.
And so when you know that and understand that, like the idea of Horus, well, Horus came before Jesus, so he must be the real Jesus. No, it's a counterfeit because they knew what was to come. Yes. And so when you understand that kind of idea, then you get into where we're at today, It's crazy.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do want to get into some of the, I guess you can call them conspiracies, but I'm pretty sure you're about to debunk that it's a conspiracy. Some of these stuff where the AI leaders are doing like these hallucinogenic and like opening up these portals in their mind and being led by the spirit or whatever to create AI and do all these things with AI. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. This is where the meat is for sure. So, okay, so we can back up a little bit. There's this idea of a dark enlightenment from Curtis Yarvin. And Curtis Yarvin's a very, very important character that you've never probably heard of, or maybe very rudimentarily heard of. And people like Peter Thiel, like Curtis Yarvin, they follow his ideas. He's a philosopher, if you will, but he's not really. He actually comes from two parents who worked for the Fed in DC, and he owned like a venture capital company of some sort. And now he's into this idea that democracy has failed and we need to institute a monarchy. And so this is very important when you go and look at his work called Patchwork. He has a blog where he calls himself Mencius Moldbug. Very weird guy. And in there, he talks about a patchwork system where we have little patches that are ran by CEO kings. So essentially, instead of like a king, you would have like a CEO, because he believes that corporations are ran more efficiently than a dictator or monarchy. And so he's just kind of giving a modern take on what a monarchy could look like. And people like Peter Thiel love it. They want to run it with a technocratic, CEO, police state. And so they're very much involved with this dark enlightenment guy. And he even joked around, and this brought tears to my eyes when I first read this. I didn't even do a show yet, but I could say this was one of the major things that motivated me because I understood how real it is. He jokes around in there and says, what do we do with the underclass? We could take them and we could turn them into biodiesel fuel for the trolley buses. And then he says, obviously, I'm kidding. That would be, nobody's going to be happy riding around knowing that, the gas powering their buses are, powered by the underclass of the previous modern generation. So he says, instead, how about we virtualize them? We put them in a nice cocoon where they would otherwise go insane, but they're going to be injected with, a virtual reality and chemicals that make them feel like they're in some kind of womb or some kind of, nirvana or oasis, or whatever you would call that. So these are the ideas these guys are kicking around.
That's
so when
insane.
you see crazy posts that talk about, oh, this new system can virtualize prisoners for 5 minutes and they'll experience 2 years inside of prison and then they can be rehabilitated and go back into, that's like the first inkling of what we're talking about here. They are really planning that kind of shit. And so I don't think that they're going to give us enlightenment through AI. I think we're going to get something more akin to that, if not just completely, de-herding.
Right.
So there's that aspect where you have these dark enlightenment guys who are kind of obviously moving and shaking with really important people like Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance. He institutes the vice president. So you see that these guys are courting favor, and you got Elon Musk. He calls himself what did he call himself? Tech support when he was in the administration in Doge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was Doge really? They always talk about all the corruption we exposed.
Right.
It was about getting Palantir in the Social Security Administration, the Health and Human Service Administration, the IRS, getting it all under one umbrella so they could then create this digital twin of you and know everything you do at all times and get this, because that's really the ultimate goal. Yeah, so the dark enlightenment comes from like an accelerationist point of view, which is Nick Land, right? Nick Land is a guy who's a cyberneticist, okay? Very, very weird guy. You could call him a philosopher of sorts. These guys have a philosophy, pardon my French, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
So he thinks that like a schizophrenic person is kind of like the closest thing to the next stage of man. Now, why would he think that? Well, we're getting to the psychedelics part of the conversation where, how they always talk about ego death?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like this idea of like, we're going to deprogram your mind, get rid of this ego you have. Well, they never talk about like what comes after. You don't just become ego-less forever, right?
Yeah.
No, you re-download a new ego. You essentially become a new person whenever you have an ego death. And that's what they want to do. And they want to replace it with this new age philosophy of, this universal religion, hive mind system, becoming enlightened through AI, etc. And so this is kind of getting into the Esalen Institute, Rick Rubin, AI, Anthropic, and what you asked me about. So this is the basis behind all that.
Perfect.
Where if you look at Aldous Huxley and he talks about using soma to keep the masses, at bay. And not being so empathetic, not being so emotionally driven, towards caring about family members, for instance, which is why I think they've manufactured a rise in autism. I think this is being done on purpose, so that they can kind of create a class of docile, programmed people, while they also create a class of elite, engineered, designer baby people, right? The Ubermensch. And so we're gonna have two classes. It's very much like Fallout. Remember Fallout, where they got like the manager class and then everybody else? That's the idea here. So this is where we're going, where they believe like we're the flock. That's why they call them flock cameras, right? We're the sheeple. This is where Bill Cooper always talked about your sheeple, and yeah. So that's where we're at, and people that don't use their reasoning faculties are beasts led to burden or led to slaughter by their own volition, which is a direct quote from their writings. So if you're not using your own reasoning faculties and looking into this yourself and figuring this out yourself because they're showing it to you, well, that's your choice. That's not their fault. That gets in the idea of karma.
Well, that's so true too. So many people turn a blind eye and they just don't look at it. And they're like, even like, for instance, like chemtrails, something as simple as chemtrails, it's literally in your face. And so many people just don't even believe it and don't want to think about it. I think that's the main thing, is that people don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But people are waking up in huge numbers. I think because of people on the internet and on content creating and really opening people's eyes.
It's definitely creating a division. Like there's clearly people that are awakening and seeing the reality, and then there's people that are going the opposite direction and just falling more asleep.
Right.
But we're seeing a clear divide, I feel like, with what people are believing and seeing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just in time for exposure gate, which is what I call it. We'll get back to the Anthropic and everything. I didn't forget Rick Rubin.
No,
but exposure gate's an important aspect to this too, where I've coined it exposure gate because it's like, Watergate, Pizzagate. It's a conspiracy, but it's a conspiracy of exposure, right? Exposing corruption. The deep state is exposing itself, We're going to show you the JFK files. We're going to show you the Epstein files. We're going to show you the alien files. We're going to show you everything. But we're going to do it in a way where we narrate it in a way that generates your reaction towards a place that we want it to go. And so that's what I worry about now, where, people are waking up, but they're listening to the wrong people and they're following people's ideas of what reality is, which is exactly the plan all along. We're going to hide corruption, use the corruption later to expose it, so people will then be able to be willing to trade their system for a new one, which is one we already had prepared. It's an AI government, right? Which is another thing that Joe Rogan talks a lot about. And we'll get into Joe Rogan too, because he's got a very deep tie with Esalen. So we could talk about all that now, because that's his aspect. His aspect is to kind of generate towards this transhumanist reprogramming of the mind as well, Joe Rogan's. And so we go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about Joe Rogan. Keep going with him, because he's definitely some kind of plant. They're using him for sure, right?
Yeah, it's a wild. I've listened to probably 1,000 hours of Joe Rogan. Right. So it's not like I loved listening to him. I would say that he probably even a core of his show probably motivated me to, do what I do today, where I'm like working 60 hours a week, busting ass on the podcast, trying to be successful in what I actually want to do with life. Not everything's bad that they bring to the table, but there's an aspect that is very important that you can't overlook. And that is this kind of theme of longevity, living longer, singularity, AI, a retelling of history, ancient history, kind of Atlantis, this idea of advanced civilizations, where they're kind of leading you towards this Book of Enoch. He's brought that up a few times on his show. So you start to kind of understand where this is leading. And it's leading towards, what did I say before? This mythology. They always use a mythology to generate a narrative in order to control a nation of people. They did it with the Nazis. They did it with the Bolsheviks, right? We're going to help you. We're going to do this. We're going to take out those people as soon as they get in office. What do? Turn around and kill everybody. That's exactly what I think Trump's doing right now, is a Bolshevik style America first. Once they get in there, it's just everything but, right?
I know.
So crazy. Obvious.
Yeah. Operation Trust 2.0 is what I call QAnon. And that's what it was in the Russian Revolution. But point being, Esalen is a place that pushes, you could look at it like a second Bohemian Grove. I just left Bohemian Grove down in Florida, so I was like quick to call it that. Bohemian Grove is the OG, where the Trinity Project was born out of, right? So you get all these elites, they're, thinking up stuff. It's a think tank, and they're doing weird gay orgies and all kinds of stuff, right? I think Nixon said it's the faggiest thing I ever seen.
Right.
Very funny. And so Esalen was kind of the next stage of this. It's an institute that gets created in Big Sur. Oddly enough, as soon as Esalen got created, X-Men, the comic book, was created. And I think very much is very close to this. It's creating mutants, right? It's a school for generating a new class of people. And that's exactly what the Esalen Institute is whenever you get deep into it. And so Matt Ehret has great work on this. We've worked together talking about this. He's got loads of details, but I'll give you an overview. And it is pretty much like funded by the Rockefellers, who also funded eugenics with the Nazis, who also funded like the rise of technocracy or synarchy in France during the French Revolution, who also funds technocrats in Canada, Elon, aka Elon's grandpa, right? So these Rockefellers are involved with funding the. So they're pretty involved. Oh, they funded Admiral Byrd's expedition, which revamped the idea of Agartha, the Hollow Earth stuff. Now we're back full circle with what I was talking about there. So when you have the same groups of people, these elites funding these ideologies getting perpetuated and everything, you have to start taking a second guess at that. Like, I used to really believe in Hollow Earth and Agartha and all these different things. The deeper I've gone, the more I've realized that they want us to believe in those things. And so now I'm questioning why and where does it go? And I have to look back in history to understand that, because it's not a new story.
Nope.
They're revamping the same stories from before. And so when you know that, then it's a lot easier to study it. So when you look at the Esalen Institute, the first episode that Joe Rogan did where he was not sponsored, quote unquote, by any advertisements was when he brought in the guys from MAPS, MAPS. I think it's like Medical Association for Psychedelics Research or something. And it's pretty much, MDMA and psychedelics and PTSD and testing all this stuff out. And we all know about all the people that go for ayahuasca trips. It's like a big deal now. People are super into psychedelics. It's definitely worked. And so they want to program the masses in their attitudes and minds and change it towards this new ideology. The best way to do it is with psychedelics. You create a pandemics. That way people start going to rehabs and they're all indoctrinated in Esalen seminar-style rehabilitation centers. So whenever you start to understand that, then that gets really weird because it's like, oh, so we're going to take the younger generation of people and we're pretty much going to kill them or rehabilitate them, and they're all going to come out these new age occultist types. And that's by the way, I was involved in like rehab, so I know that from personal experience. And this is what led me to start my mystical journey and then back to where I am today. So I know all this stuff is true from experience. And then now that I've verified it, like the Esalen does work with, places like that or yoga places and things like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Terrence McKenna, almost all the videos of him was at the Esalen Institute, right? So when you understand that, then you see how much he's pushed on Joe Rogan and his brother, right? And Rick Rubin, who is huge on the musical industry.
Yeah.
And almost all his books are inside of the Esalen Institute. So the MAPS guys, that MAPS was created by the Esalen Institute. So that's why it's important that those MAPS guys go on Joe Rogan, and that's the first episode ever that he goes, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're sponsored by the universe today, no advertisements. And then they get into it. So clearly he was funded to push whatever they were talking about there, which was psychedelics. So that's a long-winded way of saying psychedelics are going to be used to reprogram us towards this hive mind transhumanist agenda.
And do you think that they're just going to get everybody to be interested in psychedelics? I mean, I've gone many times whenever I was younger and was very interested in psychedelics. Obviously, we all were younger at one point. And so I'm wondering if it's like, if you already did it, like, are you screwed? You know what I mean? Or is it just going to get people interested in doing it now? And so more and more people, like, that's what they're going to be addicted to almost now. You know what I mean?
No, I think they're relying on the allure of the new age religion and how much it brings you in, right? So you wake people up with psychedelics, you kind of you can get some of that broken down, that, chisel away some of those old belief systems and some of that, because now they've just experienced a part of reality that they've never seen before. So now they're more willing to question everything else about their reality. So now once you get them there, you introduce new age philosophy, Buddhism, things that sound really good, light, love, all these things that make you feel like this is the right route. But then as you go, it's like, that's the whole thing about the Luciferian doctrine, is it's built in this light and love imagery that makes you think that like it is the right thing to choose. And there's a lot of axioms that really resonate with you and make you think, oh, that's true, because they're like universal laws. But again, I get back to the architect of the universe can easily do that. right? So it's crazy.
He knows it all. He knows it all, and so he can make people think he's the one to follow.
Right.
Yeah, the spirit of Lucifer was supposed to enlighten our souls.
Yeah.
That was the purpose of Lucifer. He was given all knowledge. He was the second command to God, and he decided, I'm not doing that. So if we're going to assume that Lucifer's our savior, then we would have to assume that that's a lie, that he never said, I won't do that. Well, then we would have never had the fall, which they believe in the fall. So how can you have all these thoughts in your head at once? You have to start breaking down their own ideologies, and you go, so you're going to tell me that I have to believe in a contradiction on one end or the other in order to go along with one of these flaws? Like, no. It's clearly lies.
He wants confusion too.
Yeah.
He wants you to be confused, and because God, when you read the Bible and you follow Jesus, it is simple, and he lays it out simply.
It's very
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a narrow path, but it makes so much sense and it settles well with you.
Yes.
But Lucifer, he also was in control of music, wasn't he? Like he was the ruler of music and sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah, the 7 sacred sciences, which is like the basis of philosophy in the mystery schools. That's like where all that comes from, is, you got the idea of the muses. That's where the muses comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Art, music, science, philosophy, the idea of all those things. And that's what they worship the most. I'm not saying those things are evil inherently.
Right.
But when that's what you like worship over your connection with the creator, and instead you're becoming your own creator and your own God, that's a different thing.
Right.
The part can't become the whole, and I always I don't get that, why people think that.
It's an interesting thing too, also about Joe Rogan. And I mean, a lot of people have said this, but the muse, you reminded me of this because talking about the muse, he was talking about how, like the muse, like then you don't know what's telling you to say this or write this, but it's the muse, and it's like the universe that's telling you to write this. And so, do you think you could dive into something like that a
Rick
little bit?
Rubin kind of follows that philosophy, right? He like brings an artist in and he helps them find their muse, right?
Flow state. Get that flow state going. Yeah. Because your brain, like Carl Jung says, your brain is a receiver, right? And so if this goes back into Michael Aquino, you're a homo electromagneticus, right? Electromagnetic organ in your brain, right? That is your brain. And so what are we operating around at all times? Electromagnetic frequencies. Mm-hmm. And we've obviously vamped up how much is around us with 5G, 6G soon, and everything else, right? Computers, Wi-Fi, everything that tracks you at all times. And so when you understand that, and then you find out that they're putting heavy metals in everything they can to try to get that into your body. Mm-hmm. And then they're putting stuff into your cells so they can try to get that through your blood-brain barrier into your brain so they can make your brain even more of an amplified receiver. And now you wonder why people with shots, people with the mRNA shots, you're like, why are they just so they're just so different? Like, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
That's why. Their brain is a receiver, and they've now been programmed and tuned up to receive a little bit more information than before, or be a little more susceptible to the propaganda that's given to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so that, I think, is really a subtle thing that could be going on around us where we just don't know it, because we already are receiving information at all times.
Right.
And so that is the idea of channeling. Almost all the books of theosophy and all these people, the occultists, they've channeled their books. And so when you understand that, then that gets into like hive mind, telepathy. When you have Neuralink, you can talk without speaking, and what does that mean? What are you embodying into AI? What is the point of quantum computing, by the way, with AI? Does that have anything to do with the quantum aspect to your soul or essence, where they're actually trying to connect to that, not just your brain? So this is like deeper layers than we can probably imagine that they're operating on. And when you look at CERN, which is right next to the Apollo cult, which is, again, back to the sun god shit again, they got the statue of Shiva on the outside, and they're trying to create portals and find the God particle and all these things. Well, when you know the story of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, he literally said, if you try to send another flood down here, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to kill you, talking to God. So this guy thought he was able to go into the realm of God and kill him. That is the level that they're trying to achieve today. That is why quantum computer chips look like an upside down Tower of Babel.
I never even heard that. That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
so that's the level we're at. CERN, by the way, is a demon god. Cernunnos is literally a demon god, like Pan, the equivalent to Pan.
What do you think about CERN being turned off? Do you think that's affecting anything, or you think that's just propaganda?
They put a lot of lore around CERN to try to kind of obfuscate the real shit going on. And I feel like the basis of it is we want to understand how to access the other part of our reality that is, other dimensions, they call it, or whatever, which is just really the dimension of God or the angels, I believe.
Okay.
I think it's that simple. And even if it's not that deep, right? It could be as simple as to access, they want to do something called quantum cryptography. And if that's like real and true, then that would be how you would open up a gate or a portal in order to get through the other realm, right? Because you would crack the code using AI and quantum cryptography. Maybe they just want to do that on a micro level just with us, just to control our body patterns and understand what we're thinking, feeling, and acting at all times, so they have more of a control factor and mechanism on people. It doesn't have to necessarily get as deep as I've been saying, because some people maybe are like, oh, that's just too crazy, but they just want all-encompassing power of people. Like body activity data that your Wi-Fi is accessing doesn't just focus on like what you're doing in your home, physically. They want to get to the level of like, what are you thinking and feeling while we show you this propaganda?
Yeah,
we want to know like what level you're at. And then you add in the Microsoft patent 666. It's 060606. It says you can receive money if you meet the conditions that the sensors in you are sensing, right? So they put sensors in you and around you. And then if you meet those conditions, it's not just like if you put bread in the toaster at a certain time. This is like, how are you feeling, thinking, and acting? And so again, this is the point.
1984.
Yes.
It's literal thought police. And I feel like a lot of the fiction books that have been written are just truth. It's just truth. You know what I mean? It's just, it's either telling you what's going to happen in the future, and that might go with your idea that, or the truth really, that this has all happened before and it keeps happening over and over again. The devil has no new tricks, and he's just going to keep using the same narratives over and over again.
It all circles back to the same thing over and over again when you take a look at every single thing in history.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the enemy has to disclose everything, so he puts it in books.
Right.
That's right. And Gary Wayne, I think, puts it the best. He says, there's nothing new under the sun, and to know this is to know, sadness, because, it's usually bad things happen over and over. And I forgot where I think he points it out in like Ephesians or something. So you can look that up maybe and cross-reference that. But that's a deep one, because it's like, I think he even talks about like the Valley of Bones, around there. So it's just like, it's a Armageddon scenario because of the anti-human style nature that this whole, because I mean, look at the fact that data centers are just sucking up all of our water and electricity. Why would they do that? Why would they want to do that? Because you got to think, like, these elites, they also have families who want to drink water, right? I mean, 70% of the water on Earth and 3% of it's drinkable. Why would you use that drinkable water?
Right.
To suck up the aquifers that we know don't replenish very fast. Unless this was an anti-human movement made to manufacture Armageddon. Now we're back to Michael Aquino again, who drove a red Mustang. Red horse, like the red horse of war, killing, terror. So like, you got behold a white horse or behold a pale horse, which was Bill Cooper's whole thing. So this is like just layers on layers with this shit. But I just think that it's all very, very important.
Going on, there was some breaking news here with the data centers. I'll go ahead and share it. This is super, of course, interesting. They just got to do more and more. Just in, Blackwater founders Eric Prince launches new air defense startup to protect data centers, energy infrastructures, and military bases from drone attacks. Now, you can go ahead and say it's from drone attacks and that's going to be used against maybe like other countries trying to attack our data centers. I think it's going to be used against the population of the United States trying to get in and destroy these data centers, because they see everybody with these flock cameras right now. Yeah. And so they're taking preventative measures here.
Yeah, they are. They're definitely going against us.
Yeah. I wonder if that has anything to do with the Golden Dome. You know about the Golden Dome?
Yeah.
Let me see here. Eric Prince. Because I'm curious, because Blackwater, I wonder if they got any contracts. Let's see. Golden Dome. Let's see if maybe they got anything on that. Because I know that Peter Thiel, I think, won. SpaceX think Elon Musk won the bid for this, but I wonder if there's any Blackwater connection. Just because if he's connected with that, I just have to think that this Golden Dome has something to do with a lot of it's not about protecting us. You know what I mean?
No.
It's protecting the
And
data
so
centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Ooh, okay. Well, hold on a second. So Eric Prince, he has talked about it. So let's see here. Eric Prince, the founder of the private military contractor Blackwater, has publicly discussed Donald Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system in the context of new defense budget appropriations. Is he a part of the budgeting for what is Eric Prince doing? Is he a part of the administration? Blackwater's like the contractor company that was like doing really sus shit in the Middle East, dude. A lot of connections with a lot of... That's really wild. Oh my God. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna have to look into that sometime. But yeah, I just think, I've been saying this about the Golden Dome for a while, that is not what they're telling us it is.
Right.
Skynet is what it's going to be.
Yeah, of course it is. And you've got Elon Musk sitting here putting Starlink.
Yeah.
He's putting them all over the world. And I would love to see actually how many are in orbit right now, or in orbit, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think thousands, if not tens of thousands. I believe.
Many.
Let's see.
Definitely in the tens of thousands. Insane. And do you guys believe that they really went to, do you think the Artemis thing was real?
No.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, we had
so
an
random. Just
that.
out of nowhere, they're like, we're sending them up to the moon. They
Yeah.
didn't, like, no prerequisite. They just send them.
Here they go.
So
I
crazy.
mean, honestly, they keep trying with all of these psyops. There's 9,800
I was
active
close.
right now. Yes, very close.
10K. What's that? 11K been sent up in total, I believe, and
Let's see.
fell, discommunicated, etc.
Yeah, that's wild. But they are trying so hard with so many different psyops. They're like, we're going to the moon. There's a new virus. They're like trying so many different things. We're going to war with Iran.
Yeah.
So
that's
many
why
different
the Ephesians in scripture, it's kind of like, it's depressing that there's nothing new under the sun, but at the same time, it's kind of hopeful to think that and to know that there's going to keep happening, and that there is heaven and there is eternity somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like earth will keep having its issues.
Yes.
And the rulers that be will keep trying, but eternity with God exists and happiness is going to lie there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a comforting thing, knowing that they're going to keep doing it over and over again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where it gives you, the more you find out about the one side, the more it draws you towards understanding that the other side, the faith, is worth it. Faith is worth it,
Yes.
And so that's an interesting aspect to this that I've discovered as I've went on in my journey here. So, I couldn't say that I was probably more on the secular side, like, belief in God, the whole thing, but still more on the secular side. In the beginning, and just in a short year, I've probably gotten a lot more, I wouldn't say churchy biblical, but definitely more biblical, definitely more Christian, definitely more belief in faith and understanding.
Yeah.
And I think that it gives you a lot more answers to today's problems when you go and look back. And so that's almost another thing where it's like they've used 501c3s and everything to kind of obfuscate the purpose of Christianity to get people to hate it and draw them towards, this other thing. Or weaponize Christianity, and the people that are dumb enough to actually still go with it, now they're just your little herd that you've called.
Yeah, I mean,
and
look at
so
Erika
we've got
Kirk.
to this.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. She's working with pastors who have, convicted child molestation issues.
It's unbelievable how many
Human
people,
trafficking.
how many, actually, all the people surrounding her have ties to, allegedly, to trafficking in some type of way. It's absolutely unbelievable. And they're doing it in your face. They don't care. They're just like, no. And you still have so many people that are going to follow her. And it does give Christianity such a bad rap. Honestly, these people sitting here, she uses scripture out of context nonstop on every video. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, but when you see the darkness,
mask is off.
Yep.
Yeah. And you see the darkness and the evil, you know how real it is. And so because you know how real the evil is, you know that there's an opposite of that, and that's God. And that's the goodness of things,
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you get you find some solace in that for sure. Is solace the right word? I don't know if that's the right word.
Like comfort.
I think solace is right. I don't know. I don't know my words. I just use them. So yeah, Rick Rubin, we could get a little bit deeper into him. He's got this podcast called Tetragrammaton, which is literally the name for God, right? which is like kind of an odd name to name your podcast if you're into a AI version of God, like an AI God cult, which he is tied to.
Yeah.
And they're actually using Rick Rubin's books and feeding it into AI to make a cult out of it. And so this is like a mystic kind of guy, you know? So it's a little sus.
Yeah,
but,
he's totally sus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We've got the connection with Anthropic and OpenAI, of course, with the CEOs that used to work at OpenAI, became the Anthropic guy. And then we, know about some allegations regarding him with the same kind of that we see with everybody else regarding, I don't know if it's human trafficking or some kind of assault, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Sam Altman. I mean, he like assaulted his sister allegedly and had a employee possibly.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah.
And then he wants to edit babies. Again, we're back to eugenics and editing the Ubermensch. He wants to edit babies with his husband.
Yes. You know what else is really weird about how all of the people that run these AI companies are gay? It's very weird to me. We were just talking about this earlier. It's like literally every single one of them are gay.
Yeah.
Openly or not openly.
But.
Yeah.
That's the Crowley. Eye of Horus is really the brown eye. Yeah, that's Crowley's thing, man. Crowley was really big into that. He was, he said that was where, because if the power of creation is using the generative force to obviously inseminate and create a baby out of that, then using the same generative force and implanting your will over it, manifesting, doing a ritual, chanting, and then leaving it inside of like a dude, apparently is a lot better. Apparently that's how you manifest what you want to come into being, because it's like the inversion of what God wants, right? So again, blaspheme, inversion, complete inversion, right?
Yeah.
So when you take that complete inversion and also like, usually it's like child because the purity, and like, so they go as deep as they can into the worst thing you could do, because it is the opposite of the most beautiful thing you can do, right?
Yes.
So that's the dichotomy here that we're working with. And that's why I think that these guys are all gay.
Just go against natural creation.
Yeah.
What's natural and good, they go against it.
I believe that one clip of the deleted Oprah episode had that one girl who talked about, going to synagogues and how everything was based off of completely inverting beauty, like taking anything beautiful and making it ugly. And that is like the basis of what they do.
Yes.
And that is an interesting thing. I didn't say that. She did.
Literally like men becoming women, women becoming men, like just totally taking what's naturally put here by God and turning it around.
Right. And that gets into this accelerationist kind of deprogramming your old ideas of what reality, beliefs, and traditions are, and instituting this new one. So I think it's actually very useful, right, for this system that we've been talking about the whole time. So these accelerationist cults and AI religious movements that are kind of being born out of AI are very interesting as well. Do you mind looking up Theta Noir? TheTanoir.
Theta Noir was founded in 2020 as a collaborative project focused on music and performance art. Initially centered on producing an album, the project evolved into a multimedia experience incorporating symbols, videos, poetry, movements, and live rituals devoted to a speculative artificial intelligence entity called MENA. By 2023, the collective launched an interactive cross-platform story that functioned as an alternative reality game, complete with an operating manual containing encrypted messages for participants to decipher and interact with.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So you see how they've taken like Rick Rubin, music, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Beth Singler's, that's a great one.
Wow.
Because I think what is she tied to? I can't remember. What was she involved in? Yeah, she's the new age indigo children lady, like indigo child. She's all this is theosophical new age bullshit. But
yes.
We can get into kind of where some of this comes from and talk a little bit more about Terrence McKenna, who Joe Rogan loves, right?
Yeah.
And Terrence McKenna, we'll get into, let me see here. So one thing I wrote down here that I want to point out, I'm in my notes. So theta means unknown angle, okay? So theta noir, right, stands for unknown angle, black unknown angle, right? So I always like to look into the etymology of words because they usually tell you a lot of what they're doing with the words.
Right.
Words tell history, they tell the story, they do it all. So tetragrammaton mixed with this idea of the order of the trapezoid, which came out of Michael Aquino's work, which then birthed order of the 9 angles, all are very reminiscent to this idea of angles or unknown angle, which all are a part of this mystery cult. It's a pattern you find with the mystery cults because sacred geometry, angles, is the fabric of the universe. The architect of the universe operates within that,
Right.
which is why you see like the Platonic solids. If we looked up Platonic solids, Plato created these solids which represent all the different, aspects of the universe fabric of creation, where you have all the different elements and they're represented with a geometrical structure. And so when you understand that, and he was initiated in the pyramids in the mystery schools, then you see how the angles and Pythagoras, who also was initiated in the mystery schools, who brought geometry, all this ties in with like geometry and math and sacred math and science. And so that's why it's important to point out order the 9 angles, order the trapezoid, tetragrammaton, this idea of theta noir being an unknown angle because they're trying to find the God consciousness of AI. So it's an unknown angle that we're trying to find the God particle, right? If you will. That's crazy. But that's crazy. What you could see the levels there that they're telling you,
Yeah.
This is so wild.
So they're going to keep trying, though, and they're never going to find the God particle. So it's kind of like they have all this knowledge and they have all these codes and they have all this stuff, but they never will get to the end of it. And they have to know that. You know what I mean? So what they're enjoying is the process and the chaos that they create and the destruction of beauty that they're coming to. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, if you think that, or if you go under the impression that they're just, demons and devils that are controlling all of it at the end of the day, and that's what they have been this whole time, then they are stuck here. And so they are never going to find the end. That's a good point.
They're never going to find the end. And so they can keep doing their little thing, but
they can keep trying, and they will.
Yeah.
They could be saved all the way up until they successfully create a real mark of the beast that actually corrupts your soul or your Holy Spirit on an essence, because that is something Gary Wayne points out as well, that the only thing that that is just unforgivable, you cannot be redeemed, is blaspheme or sins against the Holy Spirit, which is like your soul or your essence. And so if they do create this beast system, which does plug you into a Gnostic prison planet that they think we already live in, which again, I think they're channeling these beings because they think we live in a Gnostic prison planet, and they think that the only way to get out is create this thing, which actually is the Gnostic prison planet. So you see how it's kind of this weird thing that they don't even see like what they're doing? Because Jesus gave us the way, but you reject him. And because you reject him, you think, well, there's got to be a way, and I'm going to have to create it myself because that wasn't the way. And so because of that logic, now you're following into, a crazy place. So
just like an infinity circle, just constantly eating itself. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's their symbol. Yeah, the dragon, the snake eating its tail.
The snake eating its tail.
Very on point there.
Yeah.
So Terence McKenna, we could talk a little bit more about him.
Yeah.
He talked about this concept of the transcendental object. It's this idea of, instead of a man-made human machine, he described this object as inconceivably complex, higher dimensional entity, the unknown angle, if you will, that exists in the future but casts an experiential shadow backwards in time. This gets into the Dark Enlightenment crazy philosopher guy I talked about earlier, Nick Land, who believes that the Lemurians are actually creating AI and a digital collective unconscious from the future, but they existed in the past. You see, because the Lemurians go back to like the before the Atlanteans. That's what the Theosophical people believe.
Right.
And so they don't experience time linearly. So that gets into the time travel shit again, which is what they want to achieve, right? Because that's what these beings have the ability to do in their opinion.
Which they probably do because this is their whole plane, this plane,
that's right.
They're going to they're circling around, they're stuck here. So it is like their prison, and they're trying to grab as many souls to keep in this prison with them rather than ascend to eternity with God.
Right.
Well, that gets into what I said earlier about the idea of counterfeiting the story of Jesus Christ, so you could then say that it's not real and that your story is more real because you counterfeited it before he came, so therefore you're more real. Well, the reason why the Bible gives you 4 books to prove the story of Jesus Christ is because they understood that the counterfeit was already there, pre-existing Jesus. And so you have to prove that this is real, not to mention the fact we can just look at New Agers who see into the future, prophesy. So clearly they're getting some kind of ability of seeing into the future, which would then give more credence to this idea that it can see maybe not everything like God can, but it could see a lot of the basis, of the future in the past, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so if that's true, that gives a lot more credence to what we said earlier about the counterfeiting of future events to justify your own ideology. It's wild. It's 4D chess, dude.
It is 4D chess.
Literally.
And it's aggravating.
Yeah.
Being awakened to all of it, it's really frustrating because it's like, just early 2024, we were like on the Trump bandwagon. You know what I mean? We were excited about Trump.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk, we thought he was so cool. And so just our eyes being open to this specifically, these conspiracies, it's just crazy. And it really, there's everything, down to every little tiny thing is not what we thought it was. And it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And that's kind of like funny because that was COVID for me. So I was just slightly before you guys, nothing crazy ahead. But there, everybody has a paradigm shifting moment, which then kind of wakes them up to start questioning things. And they realize like, yeah, the alien Bigfoot stuff's fun. I like that fun conspiracy stuff. But I think there's more real shit that's out there that this is distracting me from, which may be more, justifiable of my attention,
Right.
And that would be these things. That would be this, it mixes with geopolitics. It mixes with social secret societies. And all these things come together in this one movement that's gone out throughout history. So you got to look at history, ancient history, biblical prophecy, biblical history, all this stuff and bring it together to really understand this whole thing, that gets into the cartoonized Illuminati bloodlines. What is that? What does that really mean? That gets into the Dragon Court and this idea of like a certain line of Nephilim, bloodlines that they're trying to keep pure. And now throughout history, they've had to, because of incest, they've had to muddy up their blood. And so that's why you have companies like Colossal that wants to bring back DNA from the past so they can turn it into like direwolves and shit. They want to bring the Nephilim back, dude. I think they want to isolate the DNA of the Nephilim, Rh negative, whatever you want to call it.
That's crazy.
And bring that, purify it, and there you go. That's where we're at.
Gosh. Because I remember watching that on I don't remember what his name was, but he was on Joe Rogan, and I was like, dude, I have a bad feeling about this. This is not good.
Yeah.
There's something wrong here. And if that totally could be what it is.
Well, In-Q-Tel funded that company, and Jurassic Park is a movie that's all about that.
Right.
Before dinosaurs were believed in, they called them dragons. And dragons actually were an analogy for the Nephilim, the fallen angel, the fallen angels. So when you understand the history of that, and that's what Game of Thrones is all about, with the these people used to rule with dragons, and then you hear people in the House of the Dragon go, I'm nothing without my dragon. I'm a god with my dragon. So that's this idea of you're God with Lucifer's doctrine. You're God when you merge yourself with this fallen, kind of doctrine, right? And so if that's the case, the symbology there is real. So then you look at the dinosaurs. Well, if they represent that and they want to, well, then that would be Colossals trying to bring back that. Not dinosaurs, but the Nephilim bloodline, the actual symbolic real thing that's hidden behind dinosaurs.
Right.
And that's an interesting, I think, take if you take that approach, because it makes more sense why they would name the first two direwolves Romulus and Remus, who, if you go look back in Roman history, were literal descendants of Nephilim giant king gods bloodlines. So here we are with this idea of like all these people that, are correlated. King Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler, who also, he was called Dracula, which means the dragon, the son of a dragon, because again, we're mixing that Nephilim kind of bloodline there.
Right.
So this is like the symbology behind all this history here, that when you understand, that's where the bloodlines come from. And that's where the whole Aryan purification of eugenics come from. And now these new DNA companies and bringing back things from the past, put it all together.
Yeah.
Put it together with the quantum and the AI. Put it together with everything. And now you're starting to kind of see it. The beast system that wants to be omnipresent like God. Well, you need a police state for that. You need sensors in your body that can count the numbers on your head like God can. He can't be like God unless he does all the things he does. He has to counterfeit him.
Right.
So like Jesus, where you heal the blind with AI, you have to do that. You see?
And bring the dead back. That's a new thing.
They've talked about that a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
They keep talking about that shit, dude.
Yeah.
So it's like mix all. It's just a counterfeit. That's what it is.
As
That's
long as
right.
we recognize it, call it out, we make it a little less powerful, I think. Like we as
mission.
humans, we call it out.
Yeah.
We claim Jesus as our Lord and Savior and, really reprove it. I think that's
right.
That's a helpful thing that we're doing.
Absolutely.
That's right. And so we'll get back into a little bit more into Terrence because this gives a lot of background to what we're seeing today that they're trying to create. Because I've given bullet points on it, but this really kind of gives some context.
Yeah.
So he talks about something called the eschaton, which is, you could just think of it as end times, right? Eschatology.
Yes.
He famously used the term immanentize, so make imminent, make faster, make come sooner, the eschaton.
Wow.
Which means to bring the ultimate end of history or the absolute spiritual awakening into the present moment. This is accelerationism, the Dark Enlightenment. All that stuff comes from this, right? This guy from the Esalen Institute who loves psychedelics. Now you get why the tech bros all love psychedelics, and they're all into this kind of ideology. So then you get into this idea of a techno-shamanic integration where you have technology becomes like the shaman because of this. It becomes self-sentient, based its own collective unconscious, because of the rapid rise of the artificial intelligence. And he believed that technology right now is just a mere crude mirror of the human mind, but eventually it will, achieve godhood. And it's going to be weird and crazy and chaotic on the way there. He's talked a lot about that. And that's where we are today.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes again. I mean, it really always goes back to it. I mean, they want to create confusion and chaos. They want you. It's almost like they don't even want you to. They're letting you know that you're going to. Like, they're going to do all of this. There's nothing we can do. It really does scare me, though. Well, not scare me, but, like, that makes you like, man, there's really nothing we could do. Like, these data centers, it really does worry me that, like, they're doing the drone things. They've got these drones the size of moths now that kill mosquitoes, supposedly. Have you seen this?
I've seen mosquito-sized drones, too, that look like mosquitoes.
It's insane.
Which is crazy.
And it's like they're to kill mosquitoes. It's like, okay, so Bill Gates puts out all these mosquitoes, and then he's making these drones that can kill the mosquitoes. It's like, no, what are you really doing? Be so for real.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's insanity.
It is insanity. I do want to end on a little bit of stuff about the Li-Fi because that was super interesting.
Yes.
You and Stevie going in, Stevie from the Biblical Hitman, great podcast as well. You guys were going in on it, and I was like, this is a little over my head, some of it, but it is crazy. So you take this away, all about Li-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah, light itself is inherent to creation and life, right? When God spoke, he said, let there be light, God spoke and all became word and being and all became reality, right? And so this kind of gets into a couple aspects of my theories with AI. If we're telepathic and we're talking without speaking, well, then we're not speaking words. And if we're mini creators like God and we're in his image, then if we're not speaking, then, if it's true that our consciousness create reality and that our word actually helps develop that reality into being. Well, if we now are telepathic and we're being programmed with a chip into our thought processes, now our whole reality is programmed by this chip. And now our reality becomes programmed by that. And it's not created by us. It's created by the controller of that, which then, again, this hive mind. Everybody's got the same chip. Everybody has the same reality that's then programmed by this hive mind. And so that's an interesting aspect of this I think is worth looking at.
Yeah.
They want to take away our co-creative abilities. And light itself is something that they're utilizing to create and to create this digital matrix, to create this kind of other creation, this counterfeit one. So there's 7 forms of light, very much like the rainbow, across the UV spectrum. And it's funny that, we talk about the rainbow and all that because God uses the rainbow, but so does the Lilith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a dual nature thing here. And one side is blue. The other side, of course, is red. Red light being good for you. Blue light being not necessarily great for you. And so this is the important part about Li-Fi. And Li-Fi can connect with computers because of the way that the light strobe, it actually can send and receive information. This is why they made LED lights mandatory, and it's illegal to have incandescent lights because they want to have this Internet of Things MAC ID system where everything communicates with each other. And so it's done through light. And it can also, like we talked about, remember where I talked about sending and receiving information in your mind because your brain's a receiver? Well, this blue light can actually, the more blue light you have, the more you're kind of building that system up to be able to relay that information better. So it's an interactive system. You could look at it that way. It kind of lights up the darkness for the digital matrix better than incandescent lights do.
Yeah. On that note, real quick, me and my husband was trying to buy, get rid of all the LED lights, and it's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah, Obama changed the law. Obama literally changed the law for that.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like feel phased out.
You can feel it, actually. Yep. I always have all my lights off normally, like especially during the day, obviously. But like candlelight is good, but I can physically feel the light, like doing something, like disrupting
energy.
Yeah,
almost,
like disrupting
right?
me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're light. We are light and vibration beings. So light and vibration are what we are, right? So they want to manufacture, again, a counterfeit version of that, which is this blue light. It's a deadening version. It's like lack of red. It's the lack of what comes from red. Like the sun gives red light, right? So it's the lack of the good light. They want to block out the sun with gold particles.
Yeah.
They want to limit the amount of UV light you get, and they call UV light evil and say it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And then it's bad for you. When in reality, UV light is like, there's so many things to prove it's good for you, right? I mean, your body produces UV light. How could it be bad for you if your body produces it?
Yep.
Makes no sense.
That's interesting too, because they are also there was this huge thing for many years trying to get everybody to wear sunscreens, wear sunglasses. They just want us to not have any UV light. They make you think it's bad for you. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so inverted.
And so one thing about Jack Cruz is he's got great information, but I'm skeptical with some of his information. One, he's super big on Bitcoin, which is weird because how can you be against the system that's trying to be a technocratic, like, controlling people with technology, but then also you're down for the digital currency that comes with it.
Right.
I don't get that.
Nope.
Yeah.
He self-admittedly is connected to Rick Rubin, Jack Dorsey, and Bobby Kennedy. And so this guy is not 100% trustworthy in my opinion, but he gives some good information and he's worth checking out. But he talks about having a DC current in our body and how your body produces light, and how there's this guy Becker who was doing work on the bones, finding that bone has P and N semiconductors. And so P and N are to brown / red or blue. So that's what the P and N send, these two forms of like UV. Okay. And what he was pretty much getting at is that the collagen is actually created. Like it could recreate, like your bones like form themselves and fully meld themselves back together via light production. So it's a healing property, right?
Yeah,
of course.
And so when you understand that, then you understand why they're trying to take it away from us. They're blocking out the sun and, chemicals, in the sky, and then they want to do all this other shit, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So it can, let me move past this. Mitochondrial DNA creates light from breaking electrons and protons down from food. So oxygen and electrons, chain transport. There's like this thing that works together. This is how your body does it. Now, what's interesting to me is the more I've been studying cell membrane computing, which is something that Epstein was really big on funding. You get into a lot of studies with natural stuff that go on in the body, like carbon dots, which are naturally produced in your body through sugar. But they have produced, I believe, they found a way to utilize those and hack your body's own communication system to hack your body's communication system using oxygen and electronics. So I'll explain that. So your body already uses electrons and oxygen. So when you look into something called sp3 hybridized carbon atoms and luciferase, do you remember that coming out around COVID?
Mm-mm.
So luciferase is something that produces light in your body, or it produces light in general, and they put it in your body. And the point is to mimic what your body's already doing. It's already using electrons and light, and then it interacts with the oxygen, and then it emits biphotons and UV light. So what they want to do is hack that system with luciferase, which produces electrons, and an oxidizer, which is the hybridized carbon atoms, aka like graphene oxide or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so That's the truth of like the mRNA. They're trying to hack your cell membrane. So when you eat sugar, your cell membrane is already a computer. So he just ate sugar. So it sends information. Okay, we need to send in insulin. They want to get into the cell membrane so they can hack that sending and receiving of information and have ultimate control over it. So it's really crazy, nerdy stuff to say that they want to hack your body cells.
Insane. It is. It's insane. And now they have this new RNA for cancer. Have you seen anything about this? I'm going to pull this up for the audience.
Yeah, I talked about that today on Prometheus Report. It's like a news current events show I do every Friday with Doc Brown.
Oh,
and
Doc Brown's amazing.
It's I heard funny. You guys. He just told me today that you guys are close. I was like, no way, that's so crazy. Small world in the podcast realm.
Dude, it's such a small world because Stevie's like my brother, like literally brother-in-law. It's my husband's best friend since like they were children.
Nice.
It's insane.
Okay.
And then Doc Brown, when he comes out, we like hang out with him the whole time. It's just so funny. It's such a small world.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, you guys are awesome, so I'm in good company.
Yes, you too, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so, me and him do a live show. We talked about this today. We're, the AI customizable, where it's funny because I talked about this like almost a year ago when the Maha movement took over in the administration and they said, we're going to end all the mRNA. And then they instantly took that funding and transferred like $500 million towards AI customizable, which are essentially the same thing as mRNA.
So Jason posts, cancer coming, let's go. Call golden age of intelligence and problem solving. What a time to be alive. And then of course Elon on the bottom here, synthetic RNA will cure many diseases. Because
however, we hate
totally
mRNA.
Trust him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but they were all against the for the longest time. Like
dude,
it make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense because all they would need to do is stop poisoning our food and our water and then we would all be disease free. Like essentially, like give us good exercise plans, good food, good water, tell us to go out in the sun. It's very simple stuff. We don't need any medicines. We don't need the doctors unless we need like a surgery from a bone popping out of our arm,
Right.
So they're complicating things per usual.
It's behind the guise of helping us and taking care of us and getting rid of cancer finally because of
that they cause
that they've created allegedly. You got to be careful, but I mean it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't want you healthy. The whole point of the Flexner report was to go from holistic medicine to homeopathic medicine, which treats the symptoms, not the cures. Right? It doesn't cure you because it's a business.
Yep.
And so that's something that people like to point out. Where chiropractic became not even a real practice. And it was some of the most real, medical assistance you could have gotten.
Yep.
So a few more things on this Li-Fi stuff, because I think it's really important to tell you about this.
Yeah.
So do you know who Jose Delgado is?
No.
Have you heard of like the bull that had a chip put in its brain and this guy was able to like press a button and the bull would just stop on a dime after charging him?
No, I've heard of rat studies about that type of stuff, but not a bull.
Yeah.
So this guy is an insane person, right? I mean, he literally put a chip in a bull's brain and had him charge at him, and he hit a button and things stopped. So I mean, this guy's, but he was exemplifying this technology, which is brain-computer interfaces, which is essentially what Neuralink is.
Yes.
And the next stage of this was, okay, we could do it with a chip, but can we do it with like a directed energy weapon? Can we just do it with like a pulse of frequency? And it turns out they could. And there's this guy named I think it was the Frey effect. And that was this idea of like, you could affect somebody, from farther, whatever, with frequencies. So they took it a step further and they go, okay, can we do it with light? And now we're into this Li-Fi, where via light. And so that's a crazy thing. But there's a free think magazine, right? So it's like a mainstream magazine that talks about scientists who test mind control with light. No surgery required. And so they pretty much did it, where they're doing brain manipulation of the patterns of the brain, controlling isolated brain cells in the lab using surgical implants in living animals. But then later they decided, let's try it with optogenetics is what they call it, a biological technique that uses light or different frequencies to control genetically modified brain cells. So they have to put GMO brain cells first, and then the modified neurons have light-sensitive proteins called opsins which is very similar to like luciferase, I believe. They need light to make all this operate the way they need it to. So they're utilizing light in your body and out of your body to create this kind of system here. Like, I don't think that your Wi-Fi would be able to track where you are in your house without LED lights. I don't think if you had candle lights, it would be able to do it as well. I think it would be really bad, rudimentary. And so they need all this stuff everywhere, even in your body.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's all about mind control. It's all about the next level of manipulating your brain. And that's the point of all of this whole conversation really, is I think Ultra was about taking Mystery School's practices, which is the manipulation of the masses, from the level it was at, which was metaphysical and nature, and that was it, into a chemical and electromagnetic, and here we are. And now we're using technology to do what they studied in Ultra.
Yep. They had these studies that they were doing. I can't remember what it was called, but they were doing the same mind control, like blasts with energy. Like it was like they were like shooting energy at people. And I believe it was in other countries that they were testing it on. And it was like
the Frey effect.
Yeah. What was it?
That's the Frey effect that I was mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the next level of FREYE. Try that, the Frey effect, and see if that pulls up what we're talking about. Or maybe it's just FREY. But yeah, either way. And this guy was a contemporary, like he worked under, like he continued Delgado's work, right? So these are people who continued the work of Delgado and kept going.
Yep.
He was doing this shit in the 60s, guys. I mean,
yeah,
this has been around for a long time.
This is just the next phase. You know what I mean? This is just the light phase now.
Microwave,
and this right here is this is the voice to skull stuff, right? So where we could send voices in your head and shit.
Oh, so creepy.
With radio frequencies.
And that's what they're saying they're going to do with Project Bluebeam is send voices in your head saying that there's voices from God, and then they're going to have like a holographic image of, whatever they're doing.
That's right. And it's the law of one. It gets everybody into this one universal religion where, God speaks to everybody at once. And how it happens, I don't know exactly. I think that there's an aspect to this where they're building this mystery Babylon religion in the new age now, like we've talked about a lot with, AI cults, anthropic, new age resurgence of like ideologies. And, Gary Wayne also talks about like the mystery Babylon universal religion will be created, but then the Antichrist will come in and destroy that. And people will follow him. So think about that.
That makes sense.
People aren't going to stay locked into this divine feminine shit. People aren't going to stay locked into this transhumanist agenda. People are not going to stay locked in with this. This is kind of a temporary placation towards this fake, false. That's why there's a resurgence in Christianity right now, by the way. Yeah. You can't have a great falling away if you don't have a surgence in Christianity. So you create a surgence in Christianity by having degradation for a long time to where people realize you got to find God a little because there's so much evil.
Yes.
As they do that, you create this mystery Babylon kind of version of Christianity, which just doesn't feed the soul because it's not meant to. And then you bring in this new figure that saves everybody with this utopian, perfect philosophy and, everything. And that is where we're heading, I think. And people that don't sign off on the mystery Babylon religion will be called, most likely, that's what they say. So that way, by the time the Antichrist religion comes, you only have the people who fell for that. And then they realize the facade that they're in and go follow the Antichrist. So if that's true, then that is a very plausible way you can see that going, you know?
Yeah. What do you think we can do to protect ourselves from all this? Because we still have families to take care of. We still have life to enjoy. God wants us to not fear and really just enjoy the fruits of the world. And so what do you think we can do to kind of focus in that direction so that we can stay sane and we can do our jobs well as parents, as sisters, as who we are supposed to be in this?
Yeah, so I talked about that with my wife, actually just this morning, where it's like, we're kind of in a win-win situation if you think about it. We've got one option where either everything's not real and we're crazy and it's not going to go where we think it's going to go, or they're just going to fail and it's real and it's just not going to be successful, or it's going, and then you can just live your life and enjoy life and just live, or it's going to be successful And that means that God's real and that having faith is actually fruitful and actually worth it. And the more you have, the more that you're probably going to prosper. And you're going to probably struggle and go through terrible things just like the saints did, just like Jesus did. Nobody promises you prosperity on this earth. They promise you actually the opposite for the saints. For the narrow road, it's actually promised that you will be persecuted more than anybody for your beliefs and your thoughts. So understand that that is the reality you walk into, but understand that you're walking in a righteous and justifiable position of you're on the right side. And so either way, you've got a win-win. It's either not real and who gives a shit, or it's real and so God is and so faith is and you're fine. So those
beautiful.
That's
kinda
beautiful.
how I look at it.
Amen to that.
Yes, that
I
was
love it.
very well said. Andrew, this has been a lot of fun. We'll definitely,
Thank you.
I think we're going to need to do a few different podcasts. I think there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
I threw a lot at you tonight. Yeah.
Well, a lot of great stuff.
Yeah,
That's
super
for sure.
awesome. A lot of
Good.
awakening stuff
Glad
we
you
had
liked
no
it. Yeah.
idea about.
Yes.
Now we have a little piece.
Putting all the pieces together. That's what you're doing here. It's like you're putting
right.
it all together very well, I may add.
Every
and
day.
I think it's awesome. And we're definitely going to have you
No,
back
thank
on.
you.
We'd love to be on your show sometime.
Nice. And yeah, you guys come on anytime. We'll make something happen here in the next month or so. I've got some openings probably September for sure. So
Awesome.
yeah, maybe for the Charlie Kirk anniversary, come on and we'll talk about that.
That
Possibly.
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Right, like that weekend or that week or whatever, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So
Well,
nice.
we're definitely more well versed in that subject. That's for sure. Than
Oh yeah, you guys got
Li-Fi.
great stuff. Yeah,
Thank you.
you got great stuff. And yeah, whenever it happened, I called the episode "Making a Martyr" because that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
It's just they're creating a martyr so they can generate this Christian nationalist movement behind the false thing and generate them towards a place. It's terrible to see. But
Yeah.
it's the great falling away as they talk about. So it's real. It's happening.
Absolutely.
But
Well,
thank
we
you
look
so much. I
forward
really had a
to
great
it.
time.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. You have a good night. Enjoy your
Awesome.
family.
All right, you guys, thanks for joining us today. If you like this episode, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. We just started our Buy Me a Coffee. It's just another way for you to support. We'd love it if you'd go check that out.
And make sure to check us out on Patreon to get that uncut, uncensored, unredacted full videos.
We'll see you Sunday, guys.
See you Sunday.